She woke up to the soft morning light filtering through the curtains, and the quiet hum of the city outside her heart was beating fast, not from fear but from excitement. Today was the day she had been dreaming of for months. She had imagined every detail of this day since she was a little girl: the perfect dress, the perfect ceremony, the perfect smiles on the faces of her family and friends. She had spent countless hours planning and preparing, hoping everything would be just right as she moved. Through her morning routine, she felt a strange mixture of joy and nervousness. Her thoughts kept drifting to the ceremony and all the people who would be there. She wanted everything to be perfect. She wanted to look back on this day with happiness, not regret. She tried to calm herself by taking deep breaths and reminding herself that she had done everything she could to make this day beautiful. Her mother entered the room carrying a box of flowers and a small bag of her wedding accessories. She smiled at her daughter and offered quiet words of encouragement. Her father lingered at the doorway, watching with pride. He had always wanted this day to be special for her, and seeing her in her wedding dress made his eyes shine with unshed tears. The photographer arrived shortly after and began capturing small candid moments. She laughed softly as the camera followed, her movements adjusting the dress, fixing the hair, checking the makeup. She wanted to remember every second, even the quiet ones that seemed ordinary. She could hear the soft chatter of bridesmaids in the next room, and it filled her with warmth and comfort. Knowing that friends and family were nearby made her feel supported and loved. Outside the venue, the sun was bright and the air was filled with the scent of flowers from the gardens around. She could hear the faint sound of music being set up for the ceremony and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. It all felt like a dream, like a scene from the stories she had read as a child. She tried to imagine the moment she would walk down the aisle, the smiles on the faces she loved most, and the promise of a future filled with hope. But then a small note of tension began to creep in. She could not ignore the tiny signs that something was not quite right. A text message that went unanswered, a phone call that came too late. Her mind tried to rationalize it. She told herself it was nerves or a last-minute mix-up. She refused to let these small cracks turn into fear. She had too much hope riding on this day. When the guests began to arrive, the excitement in the air was almost tangible. People greeting each other with smiles and laughter added to the atmosphere. She could feel the energy in the room, and it made her heart race with anticipation. Every hug, every kind word, every shared memory reminded her of why she had wanted to celebrate this day so badly. The music started playing, signaling the beginning of the ceremony. She took a deep breath and prepared herself for the walk down the aisle. She imagined the moment her eyes would meet the person she loved and the warmth that would spread through her heart. She stepped forward, taking careful, measured steps, each one bringing her closer to the future she had dreamed of. But as she reached the altar, she realized something was wrong. The person she had imagined standing there waiting for her was not there. Instead, there was confusion and whispers spreading through the gathered crowd. Her heart began to race, not from excitement, but from a sudden sinking feeling of dread. She looked around, hoping it was a mistake or a misunderstanding, but the realization slowly settled in the pit of her stomach. She was alone. Her dreams of this perfect day shattered. In an instant, the faces around her reflected a mixture of concern and awkwardness. Some tried to offer smiles, but they only made the situation feel more surreal. Her mind raced, trying to understand what had happened. She felt a wave of emotions crashing over her: sadness, frustration, embarrassment, and disbelief all at once. She could not comprehend why this had happened, why the person she trusted and loved the most had not shown up. She wanted to cry, shout, scream, or run away, but she felt frozen in place. Unable to move, her family rushed to her side, offering gentle words and trying to calm her. She could see the worry etched on their faces. They wanted to protect her from the humiliation and pain she felt, but nothing they could say would change the reality of what had just happened. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, and the soft rustle of the wedding dress seemed deafening in the sudden silence. The ceremony could not continue. The officiant quietly explained the situation to the guests, who were now murmuring amongst themselves. She felt every eye in the room on her, a mixture of sympathy, curiosity, and confusion. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to vanish into the floor and escape the sharp a sting of embarrassment that felt like it was burning through her. She retreated to a quiet room away from the crowd. Her hands shook as she sat down, trying to gather her thoughts. The dress felt heavy, constricting, but she could not move. She wanted to be anywhere but here. She thought of the months of planning the dreams she had nurtured and the happiness she had imagined, only to have it ripped away in a single moment. Tears filled her eyes as she tried to make sense of the day. Her mind went over every detail, every conversation, every signal she might have missed, trying to find some explanation, but finding none. She felt the weight of disappointment pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She felt alone, even in the presence of family and friends who tried to comfort her. Her mother sat beside her, holding her hand. The warmth of her touch reminded her that she was not completely alone, that even in the darkest moments, there were people who cared deeply about her. She felt a small spark of comfort in the presence of her family, but it was fleeting. Her thoughts kept returning to the emptiness she felt inside. She thought about the future and what this day would mean. Now she had imagined starting a new life filled with love and companionship, but now that vision felt impossible. She questioned herself, wondering if she had done something wrong or if she was not enough. She felt a deep sadness mixed with confusion about what had gone wrong. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. She remained seated in the quiet room, listening to the faint sound of voices and footsteps outside. Each sound reminded her that life was continuing without the joy she had expected. She felt trapped in a moment she could not escape, moment that seemed to define her worth in the eyes of everyone around her. Gradually, she began to realize that while the day had not gone as planned, it was not the end of her story. The pain was real and intense, but it also marked the beginning of something new. She did not yet know what that was, but somewhere deep inside, she felt a tiny flicker of resilience. A small voice telling her that she could survive this, and perhaps even grow stronger. As she sat there, she began to take slow, steady breaths, feeling the tension in her body ease slightly. She allowed herself to feel the sadness fully, without judgment. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that she had the support of her family and friends who loved her beyond this moment. She rose slowly from her seat, adjusting the folds of her dress and smoothing her hair. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and saw not just the sadness, but also the strength in her eyes. She realized that while the wedding had been ruined, the essence of who she was remained intact. She could still build a future filled with hope and happiness. The day was far from perfect, but she decided to face it with quiet courage. She would leave the venue with her head held high. Even if her heart ached, she would find a way to move forward and discover the life that awaited her beyond the disappointment. With one last deep breath, she stepped out of the room and back into the world. Her family flanked her, offering support and quiet smiles. She felt the eyes of the guests on her, but this time, she did not feel crushed by them. Instead, she felt a determination to keep moving, to not let this moment define her. She knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but she also knew that this was only the first step toward finding her strength and reclaiming her happiness. So after leaving the wedding venue, she felt as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. She walked in silence with her family beside her. But each step felt heavy. Her mind was filled with questions she could not answer and thoughts that refused to calm. She wondered how a day she had imagined as the happiest could become so painful. She felt trapped in a whirlwind of sadness and confusion. Unsure how to move forward back at home, she retreated to her room, closing the door behind her. She wanted to be alone, to think and to cry, to let out the emotions that had been building inside. She sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of disappointment pressing down on her. She tried to remember the joy she had felt that morning, but it seemed distant and fragile. She felt empty, as if the dreams she had nurtured for years had vanished in an instant. Hours passed, and the room remained quiet, except for the occasional sigh or the sound of her family moving quietly outside. She stared at the walls as if looking for answers there. She thought about the months she had spent planning the wedding, and the effort she had put into every detail. She felt anger and frustration, mixed with the sadness. She did not understand why this had happened and why it had to hurt so much. Her mind began to wander into the past, thinking about her life before the wedding. She remembered her struggles at work, the long hours and the sacrifices she had made. She thought about the moments she had felt alone and the times she had doubted herself, but she also remembered her successes and the small victories that had given her hope. She realized that even though today had been ruined, She had survived difficult times before and could survive this. 2. The next few days were quiet and filled with reflection. She avoided friends and colleagues because she did not want to face their questions or pity. She spent hours walking alone in parks, thinking about what the future could look like. She wrote in her journal, trying to capture her thoughts and emotions. She wanted to understand herself and her feelings. Better, she wanted to find meaning in the pain she felt at night. She often lay awake, thinking about the future. She wondered if she would ever find love again. If she would ever trust someone as fully as she had hoped. She questioned her decisions. In her worth, feeling the sting of rejection and disappointment, deep inside, she struggled to find hope. But somewhere deep within, she felt a small spark that refused to die. A part of her still believed that life could hold happiness. Looked different from what she had imagined. Her family tried to support her in their own ways. They offered words of encouragement and reminded her of her strengths, but she often brushed them aside. She felt as if no one could truly understand the depth of her pain. She wanted to scream and cry and be heard, but she also felt too tired to express the emotions fully. She realized that healing would have to start from within. She began to focus on small tasks each day, taking tiny steps to rebuild her sense of normalcy. She cleaned her room, organized her things, and tried to return to routines she had once enjoyed. She found comfort in the small accomplishments and began to see that life could continue. Even after a devastating event, she learned to appreciate the simple things: the sunlight streaming through the window, a warm cup of tea, the quiet hum of the city at night. To the midst of her reflection, she thought about her career and the goals she had set for herself. She realized that she had neglected some of her ambitions while focusing on the wedding and relationships. She began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. She wanted to invest her energy into things that could bring her fulfillment. She considered reaching out to mentors or colleagues for advice and guidance. She wanted to grow and learn and not be defined by a single moment of disappointment. Evening, she received a message from her boss, inviting her to come to the office for a discussion. She felt a mixture of curiosity and hesitation. She had always respected her boss, but never expected a message like this after the events of the wedding. She wondered if it was related to her work, or if it had something to do with her personal life. The uncertainty made her nervous, but also gave her a small sense of possibility. She decided to accept the invitation and prepared herself carefully. The next day, she arrived at the office, feeling a mix of apprehension and hope. Her boss greeted her warmly and offered her a seat. She felt a sense of comfort in the calm and professional environment. It was different from the chaos and disappointment of the wedding. She realized that here she could focus on something meaningful and productive. The conversation began gently with her boss, acknowledging that they knew she had been through a difficult time. They spoke about her strengths and talents and reminded her of the potential she had always shown in her work. Her boss encouraged her to think about the future and how she could channel her energy into achieving her goals. They emphasized that setbacks did not define her, and that she had the power to shape her life in positive ways. As the conversation continued, she began to feel a shift dawn inside herself. She felt understood and supported in a way that she had not expected. She realized that she did not have to carry the weight of the wedding or the heartbreak alone. She could lean on guidance and advice from someone she respected and trusted. She felt a small sense of hope growing within her as she listened carefully to the words of encouragement. After the meeting, she left the office with a lighter heart. She began to consider the steps she could take to improve her life and rebuild her confidence. She thought about projects she could start, work she could focus on, and skills she could develop. She realized that while the wedding had been a painful chapter, her life was far from over. There were still opportunities and experiences waiting for her back at home. She shared a quiet dinner with her family and reflected on the conversation. She spoke softly about her plans and the ideas she had for the future. Her family listened with interest and offered gentle support. Their presence reminded her that she was not alone in her journey. They wanted her to succeed and find happiness beyond the pain she had experienced. In the days that followed, she began to take small actions toward her goals. She organized her workspace, revisited unfinished projects, and made a list of skills she wanted to improve. She felt a sense of purpose returning to her life. She started waking up with a sense of intention rather than dread. She found comfort in structure and small achievements that reminded her she was capable and resilient. She also began to reconnect with friends. She had distanced herself from, she explained briefly what had happened, but focused on the future rather than the past. She realized that true friends offered support, without judgment, and that she did not have to carry the burden of sadness alone. Sharing even small victories brought her joy and reminded her that life continued beyond the heartbreak. Her nights were still quiet and reflective, but no longer filled solely with sadness. She began to write in her journal about her goals, her dreams, and the lessons she was learning. She captured her thoughts on paper too. Better understand her emotions and to chart her progress, she found clarity in writing and a sense of calm that helped her face each day with more confidence. Slowly, she began to notice changes in herself. She felt stronger and more resilient. She realized that the pain of the wedding had forced her to confront her fears and doubts. She began to appreciate her own strength and the ability to persevere. She understood that life could be unpredictable, but that did not mean could not also be rewarding and meaningful. She continued to reflect on the past while embracing the future. She acknowledged the sadness and disappointment, but also recognized the opportunity for growth and learning. She felt a quiet determination to take control of her life and create a path that was her own. She no longer wanted to be defined by a single event or by the expectations of others. She wanted to live fully and with purpose. Her relationship with her family deepened as they shared conversations about hopes and dreams. They laughed quietly together, reminiscing about lighter moments and offering encouragement for what lay ahead. The warmth of their support reminded her that even in the darkest times there was love and connection to hold on to. By the end of the second week, she felt a renewed sense of self. She had taken time to grieve and reflect and was beginning to take action to improve her life. She felt a quiet excitement about the future and the possibilities it held. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she also knew that she had the strength and guidance to navigate it successfully. She realized that life did not have to follow a perfect plan to be meaningful. She could create joy and fulfillment on her own terms. She began to feel a sense of liberation in knowing that she could define her own path and that her worth was not tied to one event or person. The lessons she learned from the heartbreak were becoming the foundation for a stronger and more resilient self. She arrived at the office feeling a mix of curiosity and nerves. Her mind wandered through different scenarios as she walked down the quiet hallway. She wondered why her boss had asked to meet her in person and what the conversation could be about. She took a deep breath before entering the room, trying to calm the rush of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. Her boss greeted her with a warm smile and a calm presence. She felt immediately at ease in the professional environment. After exchanging a few polite words, her boss began to speak about her work, acknowledging the dedication and effort she had shown over the years. She listened carefully as her boss recounted examples of her accomplishments and the moments when she had shown resilience and intelligence. The conversation slowly shifted toward her personal life. Her boss spoke with gentle understanding, acknowledging the difficult days she had recently faced. She could feel the sincerity in the words and the absence of judgment or pity. She realized that this conversation was not about criticism or evaluation, but about guidance and support. She felt a small sense of relief as the tension in her shoulders began to ease. Her boss spoke about the importance of seeing setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and grow. They emphasized that life often presented challenges to test patience and strength, but that each obstacle was also a chance to discover new paths and possibilities. She listened intently, absorbing every word and reflecting on how it could apply to her own life. They discussed her talents and skills, in depth, highlighting qualities she had sometimes overlooked in herself. The encouragement helped her see herself in a new light. She began to understand that the heartbreak she had experienced did not define her worth, and that she still had much to offer to the world. Her boss shared stories of others who had faced disappointment, yet found ways to rebuild and flourish. She felt inspired by these examples and realized she could do the same. Her boss encouraged her to set small, achievable goals to regain confidence and momentum. She suggested creating a plan of action for her personal and professional growth. She listened carefully, taking mental notes and considering the steps she could take to rebuild her sense of purpose. The advice felt practical and attainable rather than overwhelming. She felt a spark of motivation. She had not felt in weeks during the conversation. Her boss also spoke about the importance of self-care and emotional well-being. They emphasized that taking care of herself was not a sign of weakness, but a necessary part of becoming stronger and more resilient. She realized that she had been neglecting herself. While dwelling on disappointment, she began to see the value of small actions that could nurture her spirit and strengthen her resolve. Her boss suggested that she focus on projects that would challenge her creativity and skills. She encouraged her to seek opportunities that could bring both personal satisfaction and professional growth. She felt a sense of excitement thinking about the possibilities. She realized that while the wedding had been a painful chapter, her life still held opportunities for fulfillment and achievement. They spoke at length about handling difficult emotions and the importance of reflection. She learned that acknowledging pain was essential, but that it should not dominate her life. She could honor her feelings without letting them dictate her future. She felt a newfound clarity and a sense of direction emerging from the conversation. She realized that she could take control of her life and make choices that aligned with her values and aspirations. Her boss shared personal insights and experiences, offering practical strategies for overcoming setbacks. She appreciated the honesty and relatability of the stories. The advice felt real and actionable. She began to see that resilience was not about avoiding pain, but about learning how to navigate it and grow stronger. She felt encouraged to embrace challenges with patience and persistence. By the end of the meeting, she felt a quiet confidence beginning to take root inside her. She thanked her boss sincerely for taking the time to guide and support her. She left the office with a sense of purpose and determination. She walked back through the city streets, noticing the life around her, the movement, the conversations, the simple beauty of everyday life. She felt part of it all again. Rather than separate and isolated at home, she began to think about the steps she could take to rebuild her life. She made a list of goals, both small and ambitious. She considered projects she could start at work and ways to develop her skills. She also thought about personal aspirations, such as exploring new hobbies and connecting with friends she had neglected. She felt a sense of control returning to her life. She spent the following days carefully planning her next steps. She created a daily routine that included work tasks, personal reflection, and time for self-care. She began to see the benefits of structure and intentionality. Her mind felt clearer and her energy more focused. She realized that she could shape her days in ways that supported growth and happiness rather than dwelling on the past. She also reached out to a colleague she respected to discuss ideas and seek guidance on a project. She found the conversation invigorating and encouraging. It reminded her that collaboration and mentorship could provide support and inspiration. She felt the spark of curiosity and excitement returning to her work. In addition to professional growth, she focused on personal development. She started reading books on resilience and mindfulness and began journaling regularly. She reflected on her emotions and experiences and documented her progress. She found that writing helped her understand herself better and offered a sense of release and clarity. The days passed. She noticed subtle changes in herself. She felt stronger and more confident. She realized that she was not defined by a single event or failure, but by the choices she made and the effort she put into her life. She began to see herself as capable and resilient rather than broken or defeated. She also began to appreciate the small joys in life: the early warmth of the morning sun, the taste of a good meal, the laughter of friends. Notice moments of beauty and connection that she had overlooked while consumed by sadness. She realized that happiness could be found in small, ordinary moments, and that these moments could build a sense of contentment and peace. Her relationships with family and friends deepened as she shared her journey and listened to their experiences, and that speaking about her struggles allowed others to offer genuine support. She felt a sense of belonging and understanding that she had not felt in weeks. She continued to take small but meaningful steps toward her goals. Each completed task or achievement, no matter how minor, boosted her confidence. She began to see herself as an active participant in her life rather than a passive observer. She felt empowered to make decisions that reflected her values and aspirations. Her boss continued to provide guidance and encouragement. She realized that mentorship and support were vital in navigating challenges. She appreciated the balance of advice, understanding, and practical strategies. Her boss became a symbol of hope and possibility, reminding her that setbacks could be temporary and growth could follow. As she reflected on her journey so far, she realized how much she had learned about herself. She had faced disappointment and heartbreak and had begun to rebuild her life with intention and care. She understood that resilience was cultivated through reflection, action, and support. She felt a quiet pride in her progress and a growing sense of optimism for the future. She recognized that the events of the wedding, while painful, had led her to this moment of self-awareness and growth. She saw that setbacks could act as catalysts for reflection and change. She began to embrace the idea that life was not about perfection but about learning, adapting, and finding meaning in every experience. By the end of this period, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had taken steps to strengthen her mind, body, and spirit. She had reconnected with people and opportunities that inspired her. She felt ready to face the challenges ahead with determination and hope. She realized that her journey was ongoing and that each step forward, no matter how small, was a triumph in itself. She also began to set her sights on larger ambitions, projects that she had once considered too daunting or out of reach. She felt motivated to pursue these goals with the knowledge that resilience, planning, and support could help her succeed. She embraced a mindset of growth and possibility. Seeing obstacles as opportunities to learn and improve, her days became a blend of work, reflection, and personal development. She continued to journal, read, and connect with supportive people. She found joy in progress and satisfaction in completing tasks. She began to feel the sense of agency returning to her life, the feeling that she could shape her path and not be defined by past disappointments. Boss's words and guidance had left a lasting impression. She understood that encouragement, mentorship, and practical advice could transform her perspective and empower her to take control of her life. She felt gratitude for this support and realized that asking for help was a strength rather than a weakness. Gradually, she began to see a life filled with opportunities rather than obstacles. She felt capable of facing challenges with patience, perseverance, and confidence. She began to imagine a future not defined by the events of the wedding but by her actions, choices, and determination. She felt ready to step into this new chapter with courage and hope. She woke up feeling a sense of purpose she had not felt for weeks. The events of the wedding were still in her mind, but they no longer held the same power over her. She got out of bed and began her morning routine, focusing on small tasks that gave her a sense of accomplishment. She felt lighter and more grounded in her body and mind than she had in a long time at work. She approached her tasks with renewed energy. She reviewed projects she had set aside and began to take action on them. She noticed small improvements in her skills and confidence with each completed task. She felt the satisfaction of progress and the growing sense that she could shape her work and her life in meaningful ways. She realized that every step, no matter how small, contributed to her growth. She also reached out to colleagues and began to collaborate on new ideas. She found inspiration in the exchange of thoughts and the shared energy of working with others. She appreciated the different perspectives and felt that she was learning and growing through these interactions. She began to see herself as part of a larger network of people working toward shared goals. Her personal life also began to take shape. She made plans to reconnect with friends she had drifted away from. She spent time with family, focusing on meaningful conversations and shared experiences. She felt the warmth of connection and realized that relationships could be a source of strength and joy when nurtured with care and attention. She began exploring hobbies she had once enjoyed but set aside. She spent time reading, walking in the park, and practicing creative activities that allowed her to express herself. She discovered that these small joys brought balance and relief to her busy days and helped her reconnect with herself. She felt more in touch with her emotions and more capable of processing them without being overwhelmed. Her boss continued to offer guidance and encouragement. She took the advice seriously, setting goals and making plans for both professional and personal growth. She began to see The results of her efforts in tangible ways: completed projects, recognition from colleagues, and a growing sense of competence and self-respect. She felt motivated to continue building on these successes. Each day, she reflected on her progress, acknowledging both small victories and areas for improvement. She practiced gratitude for the support she received and the opportunities that presented themselves. She noticed that her outlook on life was shifting from focusing on past disappointments to embracing present possibilities and future potential. She also began to take time for self-care, understanding that it was essential for maintaining balance and energy. She prioritized rest, healthy meals, and physical activity. She noticed that when she took care of herself, she was more focused, more resilient, and more capable of handling challenges. She realized that self-care was a critical part of her growth and transformation. As she gained confidence, she began to take on larger projects at work, ones that required creativity, problem-solving, and leadership. She approached these tasks with determination and focus. Applying the skills she had been developing, she noticed that she was capable of handling complexity and pressure. She felt a sense of pride in her achievements and a renewed belief in her abilities. Her personal relationships deepened as she shared her journey and experiences with friends and family. She found that vulnerability fostered connection, and that expressing her feelings and challenges allowed others to respond with empathy and support. She felt a sense of community and belonging that strengthened her resilience and sense of self. She also began setting long-term goals. She thought about the kind of life she wanted to build, the experiences she wanted to have, and the person she wanted to become. She realized that while the past had shaped her, it did not define her future. She felt empowered to make decisions that reflected her values and aspirations, and to pursue opportunities that aligned with her vision. In her quiet moments, she reflected on the lessons she had learned from the wedding. In its aftermath, she realized that setbacks and disappointments could serve as catalysts for growth and self-discovery. She began to embrace challenges as opportunities to learn and develop. She felt more equipped to handle uncertainty and to navigate life with patience and resilience. She noticed changes in her mindset. She felt less fear of failure and more willingness to take risks. She approached new experiences with curiosity and openness rather than hesitation. She realized that growth often required stepping outside of comfort zones and embracing the unknown. She felt excitement at the possibilities rather than anxiety about potential setbacks. Her creative pursuits flourished. She spent time exploring ideas, experimenting with new approaches, and expressing herself in ways that felt authentic. She found that creativity offered a sense of freedom and self-expression that complemented her professional growth. She felt invigorated and motivated by these outlets and recognized their importance in maintaining balance and fulfillment. She also became more mindful in her daily life, paying attention to her thoughts, emotions, and surroundings. She practiced reflection and self-awareness, recognizing patterns and adjusting behaviors to support her well-being. She noticed that mindfulness helped her respond to challenges with clarity and calm rather than reacting impulsively. She felt more in control of her life and her emotions. Her work relationships strengthened. She offered support to colleagues, shared ideas, and collaborated effectively. She noticed that her contributions were valued and that she could make a positive impact. She felt a growing sense of confidence in her professional abilities and a renewed motivation to continue developing her skills and knowledge. She also explored new opportunities outside her immediate environment, attending workshops, networking with professionals, and seeking experiences that broadened her perspective. She realized that growth was not limited to one area of life, but could be cultivated across personal, professional, and social dimensions. She felt enriched by these experiences and inspired to continue learning. Her family remained a source of support and encouragement. She shared her progress and reflections with them and appreciated their ongoing interest and guidance. She felt a sense of gratitude for their presence in her life and the stability they provided. She realized that nurturing these relationships contributed to her overall sense of well-being and resilience. She began to see tangible results from her efforts. Her projects were progressing. She received recognition for her contributions, and she noticed personal growth and confidence. resilience, and self-awareness, she felt proud of her achievements and motivated to continue building on this foundation. She recognized that transformation was gradual and required consistent effort and commitment. Her perspective on the past continued to evolve. She no longer viewed the wedding as a defining failure, but as a turning point that prompted reflection and growth. She acknowledged the pain and disappointment, but also recognized the lessons and opportunities that emerged. She felt a sense of acceptance and closure that allowed her to move forward with clarity and purpose. She set aside regular time for reflection and planning. Considering her long-term goals and aspirations, she reviewed her progress and adjusted strategies. As needed, she felt empowered by the ability to shape her life and make informed decisions that aligned with her values. She approached challenges with confidence and a proactive mindset. Her sense of self strengthened as she recognized her capabilities. In achievements, she no longer doubted her worth based on past disappointments. She embraced her strengths and acknowledged areas for improvement with a growth mindset. She felt a sense of balance and stability that allowed her to navigate life with resilience and optimism. She also embraced the importance of community and connection. She engaged with peers, mentors, and friends. Seeking guidance, support, and collaboration, she recognized that shared experiences and relationships enriched her journey and provided valuable insights and encouragement. She felt supported. And inspired by these interactions, her daily life became a balance of work, personal growth, relationships, and self-care. She maintained routines that supported her well-being and productivity. She found joy in progress and satisfaction in learning. She felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that was sustainable and grounded in her values and aspirations. As she reflected on the months since the wedding, she realized how far she had come. She had faced disappointment and heartbreak, but had transformed her experience into an opportunity for growth. She felt stronger, more confident, and more resilient. She recognized that her journey was ongoing, but that she was equipped to face the future with courage, determination, and hope. She woke up feeling a quiet sense of excitement about the day ahead. She stretched and took a deep breath, savoring the calm and clarity. She felt after months of reflection and growth, she had learned to navigate her emotions and was ready to embrace life with intention and purpose. She focused on the small joys in her morning, the warmth of sunlight, the gentle aroma of tea, the sound of distant city life. At work, she approached tasks with energy and focus. She reviewed her projects, setting clear goals and breaking them into manageable steps. She noticed the difference in her mindset. She was confident in her abilities and open to learning. She sought advice from colleagues, collaborated on ideas, and felt the satisfaction of contributing meaningfully. She realized that her efforts were recognized and valued, which reinforced her motivation and self-belief. She made time for personal growth, balancing work responsibilities with activities that nourished her mind and body. She continued journaling, reflecting on progress and areas for improvement. She practiced mindfulness, observing her thoughts and emotions without judgment. She felt more in control of her reactions and better equipped to handle challenges. She understood that growth was a continuous process requiring attention, patience, and persistence. Her relationships deepened. She spent time with family, appreciating their support and wisdom. She reconnected with friends, sharing experiences and listening to their stories. She found joy in connection and understood that meaningful relationships required presence, empathy, and care. She felt supported and inspired by these connections and recognized the value of community in sustaining resilience. Also explored creative outlets, dedicating time to hobbies and activities that brought her fulfillment. She painted, wrote, and experimented with ideas, finding joy in self-expression. The process helped her process emotions and gain perspective. She noticed that creativity provided a sense of freedom and accomplishment. She felt energized and inspired to integrate these pursuits into her daily life. She continued to receive guidance and mentorship from her boss, who provided encouragement, practical advice, and perspective. She implemented suggestions for professional growth and personal development. She felt empowered by this support, understanding that seeking guidance was a sign of strength. She applied lessons learned to tackle challenges with confidence and adaptability. Her days were filled with purpose. She balanced work projects, personal growth, and meaningful relationships. She created routines that supported her well-being, productivity, and creativity. She felt a sense of harmony in her life, noticing the balance between ambition and self-care. She understood that sustainable growth required attention to multiple dimensions of life. She began to see tangible progress in her career. Her projects moved forward. She received recognition for her contributions, and she gained confidence in her leadership and problem-solving abilities. She felt proud of her achievements and motivated to pursue higher goals. She understood that perseverance, planning, and resilience were key to continued success. Her personal life flourished. She invested in relationships that mattered. She nurtured connections and fostered communication and trust. She experienced joy in shared moments and learned to appreciate the support and love around her. She realized that life was richer when shared with others who valued and respected her journey. She also embraced challenges as opportunities to learn. She approached tasks that once felt daunting with curiosity and determination. She learned from setbacks, seeing them as temporary and manageable rather than defining. She felt capable of adapting to change and finding solutions. She understood that growth required persistence, patience, and flexibility. Her self-awareness increased. She became attuned to her thoughts and emotions, observing patterns and responding thoughtfully. She practiced reflection and planning to align actions with long-term goals. She felt empowered by understanding herself better and making decisions based on clarity rather than impulse. She noticed that self-awareness enhanced her relationships, work performance, and overall sense of well-being. Celebrated small victories. Each accomplishment became a reminder of her capabilities. She acknowledged progress and recognized effort rather than just outcome. She felt motivated to continue building skills, knowledge, and resilience. She understood that meaningful growth was cumulative and required sustained effort. Her perspective on life shifted. She no longer defined herself by past disappointment or failure. She saw setbacks as part of a larger journey that offered opportunities for reflection, learning, and transformation. She felt liberated from the burden of expectation and able to embrace possibilities with optimism and courage. She understood that life was not about perfection, but about resilience, growth, and meaning. She continued exploring new opportunities both personally and professionally, attending workshops, networking with peers, seeking challenges. She found experiences that broadened her perspective and enhanced her skills. She felt invigorated by learning and connecting with people who inspired her. She recognized that continuous growth required curiosity, openness, and engagement with the world around her. Her creativity thrived. She spent time experimenting ideas, exploring new methods, and expressing herself freely. She felt satisfaction in producing work that reflected her unique perspective. She noticed that creative expression enhanced her problem-solving abilities and emotional intelligence. She felt more balanced and fulfilled, integrating creativity into her daily routine. Her relationships became deeper and more authentic. She communicated openly, listened with empathy, and nurtured trust. She felt a sense of belonging and connection that supported her resilience and motivation. She understood that human connection was vital for emotional well-being and growth. She appreciated the role of others in her journey while maintaining autonomy and self-direction. Reflected on her journey from the wedding day to the present. She acknowledged the pain and disappointment, but also recognized the strength, courage, and growth that emerged. She understood that while the past shaped her, it did not define her future. She felt empowered to continue pursuing her goals and creating a meaningful life. She set long-term goals, envisioning the life she wanted to build. The goals were ambitious yet attainable, reflecting her values, aspirations, and interests. She planned strategically, breaking each goal into actionable steps. She felt confident in her ability to pursue them and adapt to challenges. She understood that progress was gradual and required patience and persistence. She maintained a balance between work, personal development, and relationships. She prioritized time for self-care, reflection, and creativity. She felt energized and fulfilled, noticing how each aspect of her life contributed to overall well-being. She understood That sustainable growth required attention to multiple dimensions of life and intentional effort to nurture each one. Her sense of self strengthened. She embraced her strengths, acknowledged areas for improvement, and cultivated resilience. She felt confident making decisions aligned with her values and aspirations. She no longer feared failure, but saw it as a learning opportunity. She understood that her worth was not defined by a single event, but by her actions, choices, and growth. She experienced moments of quiet joy, appreciating the present and the simple pleasures of life, and the warmth of the sun, the taste of a good meal, the laughter of friends. These moments reminded her that happiness could be found in everyday experiences. She felt gratitude for these small joys, recognizing their cumulative effect on overall well-being. Continued to pursue professional opportunities that challenged and inspired her. She applied skills, knowledge, and creativity to projects she felt passionate about. She sought feedback and reflected on performance, continuously improving and growing. She felt a sense of accomplishment and purpose through meaningful work and contribution. Her personal life flourished with strengthened connections and nurturing relationships. She invested time and attention in friends, family, and community. She felt supported, inspired, and enriched by these interactions. She recognized that human connection was essential for emotional well-being and a fulfilling life. She also embraced moments of solitude, using time alone for reflection, growth, and self-care. She explored thoughts, emotions, and ideas, gaining clarity and perspective. She noticed that balancing connection with others and time for self allowed her to maintain resilience and authenticity. She felt empowered by her ability to navigate both social and personal dimensions of life. Her growth was evident in confidence, resilience, and perspective. She approached challenges with determination, adaptability, and optimism. She celebrated achievements, acknowledged progress, and learned from setbacks. She felt a sense of agency over her life, understanding that her choices, actions, and mindset shaped her experiences and outcomes. She reflected on the journey from heartbreak to empowerment, acknowledging the lessons learned and the strength gained. She understood that life was unpredictable and sometimes painful, but that growth, opportunity, and joy could emerge from challenges. She felt grateful for the journey and inspired to continue creating a life of meaning and fulfillment. She realized that her story was not defined by the wedding, but by her courage, resilience, and determination to build a future aligned with her values. She felt empowered to pursue dreams, embrace challenges, and cultivate joy. She understood that each day offered an opportunity to grow, learn, and shape a meaningful life. She faced the future with hope, confidence, and a renewed sense of purpose.